Hello friends, it's Kayla. I am the host of a thriller mystery horror book club called the Literally Dead Book Club. We're about to enter our 5th year, so I wanted to do a fun vlog to celebrate. I also wanted to take a minute to just say thank you for participating in the book club. Everybody who's ever co-hosted, who has spent their time reading the book, participating in the live show discussion, joining Goodreads, buying merch. Thank you so much for being here. We read 10 books a year from February to November, one a month. We discuss it in the live show here on YouTube. We've definitely had our hits and our misses over the years. If you want to let me know like what your favorite and least favorite in the comments below picks that we have had over the course of these 4 years, I would love to hear about it. And in this vlog today that I started filming 6 months ago, I decided to start reading 10 books that I almost picked for the book club. With our 10 selections, I like to do a mixture of the genres I talked about, but also representing different authors and different themes and different subgenres. So when I make book club selections, it's not just month to month what sounds the most interesting. I want to make sure there's backlist, there's new stuff, things are available as audiobooks. And the way that I organize it means a lot of books that I want to pick can't be selected because maybe the month before or 3 times that year already we had read something that was similar. And so once I had a stack of 10, I decided to start reading them. And the hope at the beginning of the vlog was that I would start reading some of these and they would be so good that I would then stop reading them and select them for 2024 book club reads. You'll just have to stay tuned to see what comes of that. But much like the book club itself, the books in this video are also a wide range of ratings. So let's begin. Hello, we are currently on vacation at a place called the Rockwater Secret Cove Resort. It's absolutely beautiful. There's like these tent places and there's cabin places. There's a pool that we swam in. It was a little chilly, but absolutely lovely. And then we're also on the ocean, so we can swim in the ocean, we can kayak. There's a restaurant here. It's just like really lovely. The view right from our cabin, let me show you. That is the ocean right through there. So I thought while we were on vacation, the perfect thing to start with would be like light, fun, cozy mysteries. All 3 of these that I brought with me and I want to try out are ones that I didn't select purely because Finley Donovan was a choice. This was the first like more fun, cozier mystery we ever did for the book club. It was also part of a series. It just felt a little bit risky. For some people it was a huge success, for some people it wasn't. But I definitely don't think I will ever do more than one of this kind of tone in the book club because I like darker thrillers. I like fun and fast paced, but these ones I feel like, from what I've heard at least, lean towards the lighter, cozy, like pure mystery maybe, when I like more of a mix of mystery and thriller. So for 2024, I definitely want to have another light, cozy. And so my hope for these 3 is that one of them stands out as something that I do want to read as the book club pick. They were almost book club picks this year, but when I went with Finley Donovan, I scratched off the concept of doing Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto, Killing Me by Michelle Gagnon, and The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. This one I've had recommended to me by people because maybe it's got a mix of things I've liked before. I know there's a competition in it. I think it's like a baking competition. It's a mix of the Great British Bake Off meets Clue, and that just sounds fun. Then for Killing Me, this one was on my radar because it seems fun and wild and Finley Donovan-esque. It has a character who's going to Las Vegas trying to evade maybe like crime bosses. It's also queer, and I'm always looking for more queer books to feature in the book club. But I heard recently from somebody that there isn't really a mystery, it's just a fast-paced fiction book. And then lastly, I don't think I've really heard much of this at all. I still don't know if it'll be a good pick, so hopefully the first couple chapters will indicate that for me. This is by the author of Dial A for Aunties, which I quite liked, but it is more action-packed and fiction rather than a mystery. But so this one I think is an actual mystery because we have Vera and she finds a dead man in her tea shop and she needs to solve the murder. So as the sun is setting, I'm gonna go sit outside and maybe lounge by the pool. I feel like the first chapter of each of these, this is the perfect environment to read it in. And I'll check in with you at that point and make some decisions, I think. I hope. Okay, it's really late now. Sorry for the rough lighting. I didn't want to update you until I knew which one I wanted to pick as a book club selection, and I just realized like I'm doing this video all wrong because that's not the goal of the video. But as soon as I started all three, I was like, I think I need to make the decision that one of them is going to be a book club selection for next year. The one that started out the most interestingly to me is Killing Me, but of the three, I think this would make for the worst book club selection just based on the vibe, because the main character has that like snarky kind of personality right from the beginning that not everybody loves, and doesn't really make for the best amateur sleuth. And if that is what the story is going to be, which I don't even know if it is, I don't know that that will have mass appeal. Not that it has to, but if I'm picking something fun, I want it to be enjoyable for like everybody. The first chapter started with her being kidnapped by a serial killer, and then somebody takes out the serial killer and she starts like stalking the serial killer. Our main character, Amber, she's like, you saved me, I need to follow you around now, like you can't leave me behind. But the person who took out the serial killer, clearly like this is what that person does, and they just happen to save Amber by accident. They're not like this vigilante superhero person. It was just like, this is what I do and now I gotta go on with my life. And Amber's like, no, like let's be best friends. And yeah, I guess she's gonna be on the run from here, a lot to do with her past. It doesn't seem like there's a mystery right from the beginning, which is what people were telling me. So I'm gonna read this for myself because I think it's fun. And these two I have such mixed feelings about. Vera Wong, I think, is the one I would lean towards most picking for next year. So I am gonna put a pause on this one for this video and tell you that maybe this will be one that we reconsider, unless 2024 has a new release that's a cozy mystery that sounds more intriguing than this. Because I think Vera Wong is an interesting character. We don't read a lot of books in the book club from older characters. And I saw on Goodreads a couple of my friends say like there was a twist in here, there are interesting reveals, they didn't see it all coming. But then The Golden Spoon, it's tough to figure out because people picked this up thinking, and based on the cover, and I perceived this as well, as being a murder mystery, just like, yes, a classic one, but everybody who reviewed it says it's much more of a cozy mystery. It has such cozy mystery vibes. It is warm, it is silly, everybody's a caricature, etc. And that the murder mystery is just like a side plot that doesn't really matter that much. It's about the baking competition. I think this could most definitely be a good book club pick, but it's hard to justify it when so many people are saying the mystery isn't the core focus of the book. Like, how would I pick that for the book club? It is funny to me that I'm currently like on vacation. It's so hot, it's so sunny. And once I'm posting this, it's gonna be like a weird reflection on this time because it's gonna be the middle of winter. But anyway, I'm gonna read Killing Me and I'll let you know how it's going once I have read some more. Maybe I'll eat my words. Maybe that'll be a fun part of this video, is once I've gotten halfway or the whole way, what if I think to myself, this should have been a book club pick. The stakes are high. Now, I know in my last clip, I said that I was gonna read Killing Me and then tell you about it. I only know that because I just edited that part of the video, but I actually decided to read The Golden Spoon instead because I forgot what I was reading. This was weeks ago. We're home now from vacation. I'm desperately missing the ocean, but I just decided to pick up The Golden Spoon and continue in it, and now I'm like halfway. I thought every single one of these books I should check in after the first chapter and then check in halfway and let you know, like, do I feel at this point regret that I didn't choose it for a book club pick or justified for not picking it? And right now with this one, it's definitely the latter. I feel like the mystery of the book, and this is interesting because not every book needs to be about a murder, about a death, about a missing person. So the mystery right now being like who's sabotaging the baking competition, that is interesting for many people to read. It's just not something that I feel like we've ever really delved into in the book club as far as a mystery book. We've never, you know, just followed someone who was solving a crime of stolen jewelry or scamming somebody out of something. It's always murder. So while I think this would work for many people, it's not really the type of book that's conducive to the conversations that I tend to like to have in my live shows. What I do think about this is it's being really skillfully done. When you say it's for fans of the Great British Bake Off, I have never seen that. I don't watch cooking shows. Back in the day, I was really into Cutthroat Kitchen and Chopped. I don't currently watch anything like that. I've never seen The Great British Bake Off, but I know people are so into it. And I do read a lot of cozy mysteries that revolve around somebody owning a bakery, and it's always fun to follow. This one does toe that line between a classic mystery and a cozy mystery, like I thought, mostly because instead of just following one amateur sleuth like you typically do in a cozy mystery, it is from so many different perspectives, all of the competitors. And what I think is skillfully done is, even if you're not a fan of The Great British Bake Off and you don't understand, you know, the layout of the show and all the archetypes of the contestants, it lays it out for you, not just following the competitors, but also following producers and the hosts. And they say things like, this is the typical woman we cast every single season who's older and she's never gonna win, but she gives like this heartwarming feeling to the audience, so we always cast someone like that. Here's like the asshole kind of man who doesn't need the competition but just wants to prove something to himself. And then here's the, you know, naive young female who's just like fun in front of the camera and a little bit nervous. And so we meet all of these characters and they're all doing different things. Some of them are being swayed by certain things in the competition. Some people believe they're being sabotaged. And then there is one contestant who believes that there is a mystery in her family that can be solved by attending this baking competition and being at this giant manor where the host hosts it. So just like everybody said, there is this side mystery. It doesn't feel like the most important thing, but if that is the main mystery, then I'm assuming it's going to get more exciting as the book goes on. We're going to solve it. It's going to be interesting. But right now it really is just, is there somebody sabotaging other bakers? Is there somebody who's trying too hard to win? Are the people being kicked off the show each day the correct people to be removing, or did somebody sabotage them and that's why they had to go? Which is an interesting enough mystery on its own to finish the book, but not to have selected for a book club. If you have attended a Literally Dead Book Club live show, you know they often follow a question-based structure. So I thought that's how I would do a quick review for this. The first question is always, what is your rating and a one-sentence spoiler-free reason? So I'm gonna give The Golden Spoon a 3. I love a competition book, but it wasn't necessarily as fun as I had hoped, and it was more drama than mystery. Next question is, who is your favorite character or perspective to read from? Those would be two different answers. I feel like my favorite perspective to read from though would be Betsy, who is like the famous host and the owner of this manor where it's taking place. While all of the perspectives were interesting, easy to differentiate, and quick and entertaining, I felt like I was gonna get the most answers when we returned to Betsy, so I was always itching to get back to her. Did anything surprise you? Yes, that there is actually a death in this book. It happens as deep into the book as it is mentioned deep into the synopsis, which is like 80% of the way through, which of course I didn't fully read before reading the book. And it's not the mystery of the book or the most interesting thing in the book, but because it is a locked door mystery, you only have so many contestants, so many people on the team making the show. There's only so many people it can be. And it's interesting writing a mystery in this way because you get to know the characters more than most other books before there's a mystery. So immediately when the murder happens, you don't really need to wait for the clues. You can start thinking, hey, all of these characters I've learned so much about, who do I think just would do it? The reveal of who done it and also the answer to the two other mysteries we talked about, none of that shocked and surprised me necessarily. Would you read from this author again? I would consider it. And then what book, movie, or TV show would you recommend for fans of this? I would say The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, maybe just Lucy Foley in general because of all of the perspectives. And if you found this a little bit dull, hers are more interesting. Even though I gave The Paris Apartment like a 2, I gave The Guest List a 5. That's my quick and dirty review of The Golden Spoon. Do I regret not picking this as a book club selection? No. And now I'm officially getting back into Killing Me. So I've gotten 6 chapters in today, and something very fun in chapter 6 is we found out that our main character is an Aries. She's talking to somebody on the street and they assume she's a fire sign and she confirms it, and I just love that for us. For me and Amber, or is that her real name? So the thing about Amber is she was saved by this woman who took out the serial killer who had held her captive. And then clearly something has gone on in her past. We've gotten an inkling into how she was raised. It feels a lot like a YA book that I read recently, as far as being raised in this family where they force you to like fake things, like a con artist, and you just have to participate in all of your family's cons to like get money and get a living and whatever they're doing. And so that is part of her childhood, but I think something like darker happened because when she was rescued, first of all, she was like painted blue and they shaved her head. I guess that was just done for like the gimmick of the beginning to like have her have to scrub blue off of her body because she looks like a Smurf. It was like Pokemon related. It's been a while since I read that first chapter, but I remember it said something about being the Pikachu killer. Like maybe she was supposed to be painted as Squirtle or something weird like that. And I guess he did that to all of his victims anyway. So now after that happened, she is on the run, but we don't really know why. Like she never turned in the killer. She never went to the police and was like, I'm a victim, help me, or like, here's all of this information. She just ran away and she ended up in Vegas because that's like the place that nobody would probably look for her, I guess. The FBI is looking for her. We don't know if it's just because they found out she was a victim and there were her fingerprints at the scene. And like, I guess she could be implicated for the murder if people found out that she was there, which is why she should have just gone to the police to make sure that that never happened, because she saw him get taken out. But I guess she's trying to hide something. So the mystery of the book has nothing to do with a specific crime that we know about or mystery that we know about. It's just wondering what this woman was up to, like why she really has a stolen identity. But she is back to conning people. She will like sit there on the street and cry into her phone as if she's talking to her mom asking for money, and somebody will walk by and hear her and feel bad for her and just like give her $100. That's what she's working with right now, and she's just surviving. I'm not particularly enjoying it, I'm not gonna lie, just because I don't really know I haven't got any answers, and I really do not care about this woman. I also don't typically read books like this that are from the perspective of somebody scamming people. I don't really like spy stories where a spy or a con artist or whoever is the main character and the whole book is revolving around them like lying to people. I just don't find it an interesting plot to follow. And I also don't know how I feel about all of the different conversations happening around her, like how she's talking about sex workers and drug addicts. I don't think it's inherently bad, the things that she's saying. It just doesn't feel like the author's going out of her way to make the main character empathetic to anybody or like expanding on any conversations. It's just like, this person is this and this person is this, and I don't care about anybody and it's all about me. I can already tell you this is going to be a pretty lackluster review because it took me all day to read it. It's midnight. I'm very tired. I'm tired of this book. I'm not giving it the worst rating. I think I'm going to land at a 3. I would most recommend it for people who read general fiction traditionally and they have the opportunity to be surprised by all of the twists and turns, especially by the end. It's a bit of a slow story because I think the author had a goal with the end and what she wanted to pull off, and she did that. Unfortunately, there was just like 200 pages of like wacky but not fun plot, so she could just distract us while building something off page. And I wish I could appreciate that more. Like, I wish I found it funny. I wish when I saw it comped with Finley Donovan, I wish that it had the same humor as that, because the humor just didn't land for me. It felt silly, ridiculous, over the top, always something happening, like fast paced, but it never felt fun. And I don't know how to explain like why it didn't feel fun. Maybe it's because our main character was too aware. She was too calculated. And when you're reading a book like Finley Donovan or Dial A for Aunties that's over the top and stupid, it's like you are following this character who's just making the stupidest decisions and you're like, oh, Finley, like, figure it out. Meanwhile, this just felt very serious in tone while it was trying to be wacky. It felt like a thriller at the end. It never felt like a mystery, and therefore I am glad I didn't pick this as a book club selection. I would actually rather go into a live show giving something a 1 or 2 star or a 5 than a 3 because I just don't feel like I have much passion for anything. And I would go into the discussion just being like, yeah, that plot point was fine, that plot point was fine, when I want to bring more to the table. So I think this definitely has an audience. It was me-ish. Now that we're done with the silly reads of spring, we can get into fall, silly spring, freaky fall, and weird winter. That's how I'm now organizing this video. And all of my fall reads have something in common, and it's books. So the 4 that I'm gonna be starting to read, at least, maybe finishing in this section, in this season, is gonna be The Overnight Guest by Heather Gudenkopf, Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater, Kill Creek by Scott Thomas, and The Woman in the Library by Slari Gentle. 2 of these I didn't pick this year specifically because they are about books. And since we already read The Writing Retreat earlier this year, when there was some slots where I could slide in a backlist, there was like 2 open spots. One I wanted horror, one I wanted a mystery. I ended up picking something else because I feel like we already read a book-centric book this year. But these 2 could be potential picks for next year. So The Overnight Guest was actually a part of the poll. I can't remember what year, maybe it was last year. And I just feel like this would have been such a good end of year pick because it's set in the winter. And my issue sometimes with the book club is I want the books to feel seasonal for the season that I'm in, even though that's not the season that everyone in the book club is in. But the thing about that is I had no idea the writing retreat took place in winter, and we were all perfectly fine reading that in April. And so now I have no qualms about what time of year we could read this in. So if it kicks off in a way that I think it would be a good discussion, then this could very well be an option for 2024. And then Death of a Bookseller, I don't know that I've talked to anybody about this actually. It's been on my TBR, I've been thinking about reading it. I didn't know which cover I wanted to buy, so I didn't buy either, and I just picked up the library book. If I have mentioned this, maybe it was in a live show and people were saying that it's not necessarily a true mystery or thriller. It's more literary, or it's more, I don't know, something else that I feel like people were saying this might not make for a good book club pick. Well, The Overnight Guest has to do with a writer who is stuck in a cabin in the winter and like confronting what might be going on outside, a potential killer, also confronting her own like past. Death of a Bookseller is about these 2 women who both love true crime, and they end up working together in this bookshop. One of them has a traumatic family history, one of them exploits that family history. As much as I hope that it sounds like it's good for the book club so we can all read it together, I also selfishly just want to read it right now. Then The Woman in the Library was also up in one of our polls and it almost won. But I had so many people tell me when this didn't win that they were really glad it didn't because this would not make for a good book club pick. Even though it is in the mystery genre, I guess it's about this woman who is writing a novel, and then interspersed is like reviews or commentary on that book, so it doesn't feel like you're following a true mystery that you can solve and have a discussion around. But it does sound right up my alley, so I'm hoping that I love it. And then Kill Creek was something that I almost picked for the book club a couple years ago for the October pick because I was trying to find something that was backlist in horror, but I did get warned away from it from a couple people saying that I specifically wouldn't be cool with some of the things that go on in it or some of the discussions. This one's due back in like a week, so the next you'll hear from me is my first impressions of The Woman in the Library. Okay, I have read the first 10 chapters and the first 70 pages, and I'm obsessed. I haven't been this enamored with the style of writing in a book since the Pallbearers Club or Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. So the idea of it is we're reading this story about these authors who met at a library, and they're all connecting on their books and sharing like the writing process and just like sharing a love of the arts. While they're all at the library together, they hear a scream and then later find out that a woman has died in the library. And so now they're piecing together these clues of if the scream was her, how they didn't find the body right away because they found it a little bit later. I think this is all in the synopsis. But in between all the chapters of that story, we're also reading the correspondence, or really just one-sided correspondence between the author of this book that we're reading, of all of these people in this library, and like her friend slash fact checker, and we're just reading letters from this fact checker person who also has a mission to be a writer themselves, and they're sharing their own author journey to the author who's telling us the story that they're writing. Does any of this make sense? And so I'm getting to read the critique of the story that I'm reading while I'm reading it. So the person reading it and commenting on it is saying like all of the things that are correct or incorrect because this author's from a certain part of the world and the book is set in another part of the world. They're also sharing like their theories about the murderer and who they think it's gonna be and who of our friend group should be a suspect. And it's just like reading your own thoughts, or if you didn't have those thoughts yourself, it's like somebody holding your hand through the book, saying things like, oh, I noticed that you said this character did this, but then this happened. So don't you think that makes them suspicious? And if you weren't thinking that already, now it's been put into your mind. So I am excited because one, I'm loving it, but two, I actually don't think this is conducive to a discussion because you're being fed all of the theories. Like, I don't even know what we would talk about. I don't have any thoughts of my own. The only thing I have to think about is the correspondence itself. I'm wondering, is it as clear cut as we think it is? Or is there something like sinister going on between this author and the editor? Good morning. I just finished this and I'm so happy with my decision to read it and to not pick it as a book club selection. I think we probably, if I were to predict the book club discussion that would have come from this, which I often am able to do, is I think the majority of people would be giving this a 4 or a 1 or a 2. Like, there's people who are going to be into it and there's people who are going to absolutely hate it. And I just don't think I would see that many middle ground ratings, and I don't think I would see that many 5s, even though I am giving it, it's close to a 5. I think I would have to give it a 4.5, but whatever that little discrepancy is, it's still on my favorites list of mystery thriller books for 2023, which is really exciting. I think the things that people would say that they didn't like about it is it's a little bit ambiguous in nature, especially at the end. It's not the most satisfying experience. And for me, the thing bringing it a bit down from a 5 is that, yeah, I do think that the timelines, the narratives, the storylines, whatever, could have converged a little bit more. But if I sit here and I think about how that could have happened and what that chapter would have felt like, I think maybe it would have dragged on a little too longer. It might have felt a little bit cheesy. I also think some of the feedback from people would have been that they want more substance, a little more just plot to dive into, and I didn't care about that, but it definitely would have led to a discussion where there's not that much to really talk about. I also think people probably might not like the romance subplot of this. I think people would have said that the characters didn't act super believably. However, if you think about the fact that this is a book inside a book inside a book, maybe the author of the book that you're reading where the characters are just acting stupid and annoying, like maybe they're just not that good of an author. And that's something that I always think about with the Pallbearers Club, is that people's critiques of it are always very funny to think about, because we have this character who maybe sees himself as a great writer, but the book itself maybe isn't that good. Well, people will say things like, oh, this book thought it was so much smarter, or this book thought it was so well written, and I don't think that's true. I think that the person inside the book, writing the book, thought those things. And that's skill. I know people hated this, I don't want to harp on it. Another critique actually, and I don't know that we have read anything in the book club that referenced the pandemic. I might be wrong, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. And so I know that I've heard people's reviews for other books out there that they didn't like that they referenced COVID because they read books for escapism. They don't necessarily want their books to reflect our current reality. And so that definitely comes into play in these pages, whole discussions about it. But let me know if I'm wrong. In the comments below, if you have read this, what was your rating? I've now started Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater, and 100 pages in, I feel very unmotivated to continue. I kind of want to DNF it, but I also want to know if it goes into like a real thriller territory or even a mystery, because right now we don't have a mystery. We're following Roach, that's her nickname, and she works at this bookstore, and a new woman comes to work there named Laura, and Laura writes poetry, and it's based on like the victims of serial killers, and she's like kind of giving a voice, kind of putting her own trauma into her poetry. Roach doesn't know that though. She just sees somebody in her mind who's a kindred spirit and obsessed with true crime like she is, and she wants to befriend Laura and just is following her around, becoming obsessed with her, like finding out where she lives, looking through her window. And we're reading from both perspectives, and Laura is very turned off from Roach. She doesn't want anything to do with her. She just gives her such bad vibes. She can tell she's obsessed with true crime, and that makes her extremely uncomfortable because Laura has this like past that we're slowly uncovering, but not really, because we know pretty early on that her mother was the victim of a serial killer. Roach hasn't figured that out yet though, so I imagine that's where the book is going. She's gonna find out about what happened. And like, obviously I can enjoy books that aren't mystery or thriller. I read general fiction for sure, but this type of story and the perspectives that we're getting and the writing style is lending itself well to a mystery plot, but I don't feel one. So I'm wondering where it's going, and right now I'm bored. But I'm gonna read another 100 pages, and if nothing really happens at that point, then I'll probably DNF. You know what I really don't like about myself is that I rate books lowly when I could have just DNF'd them. I have gotten to that 200 page mark, and now I'm doing that thing that I do where it's like there's only 140 pages to go, so why not finish it? And I think the only thing pushing me on is the fact that I just made the connection that this is called Death of a Bookseller and it's about booksellers. So one of them's gonna die. I don't know why I wasn't thinking about that, but that's obviously gonna be the mystery or thriller element of it. No, we're not there yet. Is it gonna be on the final page? I don't know, but good God, am I bored. It's so late and I'm so tired. My eyes are literally watering. So I just knew that if I woke up tomorrow and was still reading this, I never would have continued, and like I probably shouldn't have. I feel like there's part of me that can't give this the rating that I want to give it, which is like a 2, because I don't think that it was bad. And I'm conflicted because the words that I want to describe this as are words that I've used to describe some of my favorite books. So like low plot, not a lot happens, a little bit dull, just this back and forth of these two women. You're in the mind of somebody who doesn't fully understand what they're doing, and they have this stream of consciousness that's very unhinged. I would put this in a list of like unhinged women book recommendations. I like that booksellers are the focus of this, and it takes place in a bookstore, and it had a kind of cozier mystery vibe, just in that nothing deadly was happening. The repetition of like stocking the shelves and having the same conversations with the same group of people and going to the pub. It's not a cozy mystery, but it has those cozier vibes. I think especially what it has going for it is the commentary on true crime and the morality of it. And we have characters who are looking at it from very different perspectives, and the book has a lot to say. And for that, I think that it would actually make for a good book club discussion. Sorry, I'm so tired. Because you would get to discuss so many different things about your own personal perspective and morality about things. And then also the question could come up, what would you do in this situation? Like multiple times. If you thought this was happening to you, if you caused this, like what would your reaction be compared to how the characters behaved? I am gonna put it in the 2s. Yeah, I am. A 2.5, I think. Another one, check it off. Glad I didn't pick it for the book club. The first time I tried to read Kill Creek, I thought I was setting up the perfect atmosphere. It was in this spooky little dome house on vacation, and the first chapter just didn't really appeal to me enough to continue reading it. So I thought, okay, this time around, a freaking year and a half later, let me try again on Halloween night. And that was definitely the right choice. It set the right tone. This book kicks off on Halloween night, where all of these authors are invited into this supposedly haunted house. We learn the backstory of the women who used to live there and how maybe they're haunting it, and they are all writing books. In the first like couple 100 pages, they are in the house and they're just getting to know each other. They're having various conversations and relationships. Something I'm not liking about it is the fact that like the author is constantly sexualizing only the women characters. So it's like every time we talk about this one person, it has to mention how her like long hair is draped across her breasts, how she's sleeping in her lingerie, how in certain sexual scenes you're only hearing about her body. Meanwhile, like all she's doing is lying in bed, and we have to hear about what she's wearing and what her body looks like. Meanwhile, we flash to every other male character and we don't get any description of even their pajamas. The house is definitely weird. It's made them say weird things and feel weird things and see weird things. It's all unexplained. It does say on the back, it becomes a fight for survival. However, the whole book doesn't take place in the house. I just read quite a good chunk that's kind of like after the fact. And now I think here we're about to return to the house and they feel like they have to go back for certain reasons. And there's something weird happening with their writing and the books that they're all independently penning, and something that they all have in common. It's definitely interesting enough to continue. I don't think it's interesting enough that I would want to put a pause on it, and like I haven't felt at any point that I should stop and save it for a book club selection. I get why people like it. I get why people don't like it. I don't think this is like gonna be my perfect haunted house book. I'm still looking for that, and I think maybe we'll find it together in the book club someday. But I think my rating by the end will be a high 3, if not a 4. I'll let you know though after these last 100 pages. If I didn't tell you weeks have passed, would you even know? Maybe, but I'm back in my little corner and I need to explain myself. I finished this a while ago and I felt really solid on my rating immediately. And so I just didn't spend any time thinking about my review because I knew my rating and I was like, well, I'll discuss this whenever I feel like it. And then I just never felt like it. But before I move on, I need to update you on my final thoughts, which I don't know what they are. But my rating is a 3.5. I think this was a good haunted house book. If I read this years ago, I would have liked it less because at that point I wouldn't have been disappointed by almost every haunted house book that I've read. And compared to so many other ones, this one is good and I get why people really like it. There are so many haunted house books where the horror just like doesn't fully come to the level that you expect it to or that you know it could. And this one really does. It goes there. It's not like a pretend supernatural thing. The idea of why the house is haunted, I think is the most interesting portion of this, yet so many people talk about it in their reviews. So it's obviously not supposed to be a big reveal, but I think if you know nothing about this, like don't go look up a whole bunch of reviews about it. But then now I'm responsible for giving you a general opinion, which is good. Most people really enjoy this or despise it because the characters are mostly unlikable. But though it goes back and forth, people say that they really empathize with the characters and you get to know them so well and you feel for them. And then some people will say every single character in here, like you kind of came to detest. And I don't know if I fall into either camp, and I also don't know if that's the most important thing in here, because if the author is intending this to be like uncomfortable and haunted and give you like feelings of unease, he does accomplish that. And before, when I was talking about the character who is overly sexualized, that is also to explain her character, and that's just who she is in the book. So him focusing on that like is fair for the way he wanted to build this character and the way that but then like he's also assigning the one like overtly sexual character with all of these negative traits because she's like mean to everybody. She's really fat phobic. She just like tells her opinion all the time and doesn't care about whose feelings it's gonna hurt. A lot of the authors in here I guess felt like stereotypes to me, but that's also the goal with each of the characters. They all write a different genre. They all embody a different horror author. It took me way too long to read this. I kept putting it down, picking it up, even though there was so much action, especially in the latter third. Because it was so consistently horrifying, I never felt maybe like a climax with the feeling of unease. And so it was easy to just like put it down, pick it back up, knowing I was gonna be right back in the middle of that intensity. I think the length makes sense. It spends a lot of time getting to know the characters. So then when the horror happens, you actually care about what's gonna happen to them and their relationships afterwards or during. I can see the intent of it all. I just didn't feel anything towards it. I didn't care about what was really going on, but I can recognize that it's well structured. As far as my book club questions, I don't think I had a favorite scene or a favorite character that really stood out to me. Could I predict where it was going? Kind of. Did I get the feelings I wanted from it? No. But I get it. Like I really get people liking this, which is me. I did like it. 3.5 is a good rating. I just mean the only reviews I really see of this or throughout the years have been people absolutely hating it or people who say that it's their favorite, one of their favorite books. So I do get the people who absolutely love it is what I mean to say. Do I wish this was a book club pick? No, because I don't know that there are that many things to really discuss. I'm sure you can find many things to discuss, but maybe I would have had a hard time finding all of the points and questions that I wanted to give everybody. I think it probably would have gone over well. This last year specifically, I'm glad I didn't choose it because we read a lot of horror by men, and this would have just added like one more horror by a man when I try to even it all out a little bit better. And if I look at the horror we read, The Spite House and Whisper Down the Lane and Monstrelia, which was my favorite of the year, I wouldn't have wanted to swap this in for any of those instead. So that's that on that, and I'll talk to you next time I read something. Today is the day. I promised myself that I would hold off on reading The Overnight Guest until the first snow day of the year, and that's today. Check it out. It's snowing. We have already had, well, first of all, I thought this would happen way sooner. I thought I would be reading this in perhaps October, if not like definitely November, but it is now the middle of December. We have had one snow before, but we were out of town. And yes, it was also snowing in that town, but it didn't count because we were on like a 4-day tournament weekend and I didn't bring this book. So I got it from the library, The Overnight Guest by Heather Gudenkauf. True crime writer Wiley Lark doesn't mind being snowed in at the isolated farmhouse where she's retreated to write her new book. A cozy fire, complete silence. It would be perfect if not for the fact that decades earlier at this very house, 2 people were murdered in cold blood and a girl disappeared without a trace. There's a second paragraph that I don't want to read. I think like she sees something out the window or someone shows up at the property, and I just feel like I need to be in the perfect atmospheric spirit for it. I am currently reading something else for a different video, so as soon as I finish that, I'm gonna kick this off. I have been reading this book for 4 days. I haven't updated you because I'm feeling so conflicted if I want to finish it or I want to pause it for the book club. So like every day I pick it up, I read 3 chapters and I put it down and I think about it. And then I pick it up the next day and I read 3 chapters and I put it down. And now suddenly I'm halfway through. And I still think that this could make a good book club pick, but I don't know if it's quite interesting enough. Basically, there are 3 different storylines. We have this woman who is staying in this cabin and she's writing a book, and she finds, what does it say exactly? She discovers a small child in the snow outside. So we have that storyline, and then we have another storyline of something that happened in the past. There's this family, somebody's missing, somebody's dead. And then we have a third little perspective once in a while that just comes into it that's like following this young girl, and she's scared and she's alone. The main question with this book is who are all of these people and what happened to them, but more so how are they connected? And because at the halfway point I feel like it's obvious how they're connected, I don't know that there are that many other conversation points that would be interesting besides me posing the question, what would you do in this scenario? Because the woman in the farmhouse is making certain decisions with who she finds and what she's going to do. And I think she's doing some smart things. I think she's doing some stupid things, and that would be interesting to talk about. But the storyline in the past, I don't know that is carrying enough intrigue to have any conversation around besides the question, how are these timelines connected? How are these people connected? What's the reveal going to be? It's well written. It has a good pace. I would give it like a 3 out of 5 for intrigue for me. So I guess what I'm doing is committing to finishing it, and I just, like, I hope it's not a 5-star because I would love to read a 5-star for the book club. And then I guess I can recommend it for someone else's book club, or I can still recommend it to you by the end. You can read it independently, because it's not like you're sitting around waiting for me to tell you what thrillers and mysteries you're gonna read for 2024. You can just read whatever. I'm gonna go do my Christmas shopping and then I'll be back. I finished The Overnight Guest, and I'm glad that I decided to do that. My rating is gonna be a 3-star. I think that this is like a perfect book club pick. For the average person, for the average book club, this does everything you like kind of expect it to, but the average person I think would get some surprises as well. And then it has like that typical thrilling ending where people have to survive, and then it also has like the villainous monologue, and then it also has like everybody getting their comeuppance in the end, and everything is just tied up really perfectly. And because of that, it felt really classic. It felt like something I could definitely recommend, but at the same time, for my book club, I think I like to have more of a mix of books that don't wrap up nicely, that have more like unlikable, kind of depraved characters. You don't really know what's gonna happen in the end, and things just get a little bit like messier and weirder. So I think this would have been a fine one because there are mystery and thriller books that I've given 3 stars and I feel fine about, and a lot of the book club members end up loving, and I feel great about that. But like if every single one of my 10 books a year was this vibe, where I could also see it as something like Reese's Book Club would read, where clearly there is a message with it, and at the end of it, the book club discussion is about like women being strong and persevering, surviving, how powerful everyone is. It's obviously a great message, but I think it would get a little bit dull just for my own purposes and the things that I typically like to read. And obviously, like, my book club can't be the same tone every single month anyway. So it's not like I would want to be constantly reading my perfect vibe over and over again either, because I feel as though even if something is your favorite, it doesn't mean that's the only thing you want to consume, which is probably why when people compare things to my favorite books, they're like, oh, this book is identical to your favorite book. I'm like, I don't want to read it. Anyway, I think Heather Gudenkauf is a good one to watch. I gave this a 3, but I would read more from her, and she's definitely somebody you could potentially see as a book club feature if and when she comes out with something else. And now, as soon as I've done my hair, I'm going to talk to you about the next 3 books that I'm planning to read over the next 24 hours. The reason I think I can pull off all of these today is because they're all novellas. They're all under 200 pages. Now, I have selected a novella one time for the book club, and that was What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, which comes in at 150 pages. And to me, the ideal length of a live show is 45 minutes. This one didn't quite make that, which is totally fine. But even though I bulked it out with having 3 guests, which is like the most I normally have, so everybody getting to talk and share their opinions is what makes it the length that it was, even though the novella was so short. Also, we had an origin story to read because this is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Before reading this and after reading this, I have considered, should I ever include a novella again? Like, this felt like kind of a risk. I don't know if when I actually selected it, I knew it was as short as it was. And I haven't ever picked another novella. We did do Hyde, which is relatively short. It's 240 pages. And this, again, shortest live show, even though I had so many people on. It's just with a short book, you don't have that many things to actually talk about. There's not that many scenes, can't be that many characters that you really dive into, you really get to know, and it makes sense to ask the questions I normally ask. So in my mind, novellas are kind of off the table for the book club, but I was originally considering this years ago when I was looking at doing translated works for the first time. This is called The Hole by Hye Young Pyun, and it's translated by Sora Kim Russell. And all of these fit into the horror category. I don't think I would ever do like a mystery novella or thriller novella, but I've had multiple people tell me that I should read this for the book club. So obviously something happens in it that's interesting. So my test for myself is to read this and see if I can reasonably build a live show out of it. And that will tell me in the future if I should pick novellas or not. These other 2 just came up when I was searching like new 2023 releases that are horror. And I saw the covers before I learned what the page length was. And I like almost committed to this one because for some reason I didn't think that it would be a novella. It's called Green Fuse Burning by Tiffany Morris. I wanted to have an Indigenous author represented. I saw this cover on Instagram and I was like, this is going to be the one. The synopsis said it was like a cabin in the woods type of story, which was very intriguing to me. And then the same happened with Linghun because I'm looking for like haunted stories, still looking for that perfect haunted house book. This one is 170 pages, but with very large margins, a lot of spacing, and I don't even remember what it's about. And there is no summary in here. So my task probably today and tomorrow is to read these 3 and see if I do think novellas are conducive to the book club. When I'm looking for interesting stories and to add diversity and pick up translated work, etc., I often find really short books. So I'm gonna start here. This having a 3.3 average rating also is probably what steered me away from it a little bit. It's one thing to pick up a new release that's getting a mix of ratings and just like hasn't found its audience yet and getting my book club on board for that. It's another thing where there's like an established book with a pretty low average rating and being like, no, trust me, like we're gonna read this together. And personally, I just love being the outlier. I want to pick up a book with a low average rating and love it and get to find the audience for it. But unfortunately, that was not the case for me. I want to say like I appreciate what this book did, but to talk about something would be to spoil it, but it goes in a direction that I don't typically like. Like there's a specific type of story that this falls under the umbrella of that I often avoid. So though I did find like the second half slightly more interesting, I'm giving it like a 2.5. What I will say it has going for it is there's this hole that a woman is digging throughout the story and it gets bigger on page as the book goes, and that's really fun. So we're following a character named Ogie, I want to assume, and he has been in an accident. He's paralyzed, and we're very much just in his mind the entire book, trying to encourage himself that life is worth living and that he can accomplish certain things, and he's trying to listen to his doctors and work on everything, like his mental attitude, his physical body. But throughout the story, he has to have caregivers and his mother-in-law take care of him, and he has little to no communication. So when something is going wrong, someone is harming him or not doing something correctly, it's near impossible for him to actually get the help he needs. So it's a very isolated read. It's kind of stressful, but it also is just a kind of like battling of the wills between a couple people. It's a psychological book. I don't think I would put it in thriller specifically or horror, but it does feel like a mix psychologically of Fish Swimming in Dappled Sunlight and The Dinner. And then it also reminds me a little bit of Misery. It's definitely slow, filled with a lot of tension, this building sense of dread. And I want to appreciate so many things about it, but I didn't vibe with it. I don't know if I needed it to be longer. I don't know if I needed multiple perspectives, more backstory, less backstory. I know that this works for some people. It's just not me. Very glad I didn't pick this as a book club pick. I have no idea what we would discuss. Besides the slow unveiling of certain topics and getting to understand what the story actually is that we're reading, I can't think of many questions I would really pose to the audience. On to book number 2 though. This one has an audiobook, so I'm gonna grab it and listen to it because I want to know how to pronounce the title and the author's name too. So let's get into it. Forget what I said, I'm abandoning the audiobook. I'm halfway through. I hate it so much. I really respect the production, and I think I understand people who do like it, but the type of audiobook that has random sound effects, like it'll just be peacefully existing and suddenly like a door is creaking, a doorbell is ringing, like I hate it. So I am switching to the physical book. I'm gonna start over too because I think I've been so distracted by the audiobook that I'm not fully paying attention. We are following this town who are obsessed with the dead, and it's like they want to sink deeply into their grief, and so they surround themselves with the spirits, and it's very strange. I don't know if I'm liking the writing, but it might be because of the audiobook. Like there's just something about the narrator's voice that is not working for me.
I knock on my brother's door. A click. The door swings open. The shadow in the shape of my brother steps out and reaches a blurred hand toward me.
I did learn that it's pronounced linghun, and the author's name is pronounced I Jiang, in case you wanted to know. I am so tired. Apologies if I'm lacking a little bit of coherency. Where do I want to put you? Oh my god. No! I actually fell, like not in a funny way. There we go. Okay, I finished Linghun, and it ended sooner than I thought. There's a whole like 40 pages at the end that is other stuff, other short fiction and whatnot. So this actual novella ended at 137 pages. I liked it. I didn't love it. So I'm gonna put it at a 3.75 or a 4. And this confirms my feelings about novellas in the book club. I don't think that this could become a humongous discussion. I mean, it could. If somebody has already done that and it's done it for their book club, then I'm happy for them and they're successful and that's great. But for me, in the way that my mind builds out the conversations, I don't know about it. I liked it. It was definitely just this big book about grief and like what people are willing to do when their loved ones pass, who they can potentially like abandon in the desperate hunt for connection. And I think obviously it having to do with like the dead and ghosts, it is a completely different situation than reality. But everything is a big metaphor for how emotionally we deal with grief. It got a lot more like action heavy than I was expecting too. There's this like bidding war that goes on to become a part of this neighborhood and potentially connect with the dead. And it was quite a wild time. And then it was very sad and melancholy, and there were reveals that were devastating, and it was just overall a heart-wrenching little novella. I would recommend it, but it's odd. Like I can't think of very many books I would say if you loved this, read this. But maybe it's also because I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep and I'm gonna read this as soon as I wake up. Checking in at the halfway point. This is very good. The writing is wonderful. I have been highlighting some things that I think are stunning sentences, just about community and history and language and the body stuff, feeling like you don't know what your body is telling you. It's a lot about grief, which is one of my favorite things to read about. We have this woman who is an artist and she's been struggling lately, and she gets this opportunity to go to this like isolated cabin for a week, and she got some money in a grant. It was obtained not by her knowledge. She's kind of being sent there rather. And now she's there trying to like find inspiration for her art, but also grappling with the recent loss of her father, trying to figure out if she's like grieving in the right way. And I really like how the book is introducing like emotional pain alongside physical pain. So she like just was walking through the woods and got injured, but at the same time it's talking about like the pain of loss. And at this point, something weird is happening with the pond, the swamp, and I think it's like communicating with her through her art. I don't know that there will be enough plot in here for me, but I love how it's written, so I'm gonna finish it. Just casually ending the vlog with my favorite read of the entire thing. Incredible. I'm giving this a 4.5, leaning to a 5. Even if this was longer, I don't think it would have been the perfect pick for the book club because it's not really horror. It's just speculative. Yes, there are some horrifying scenes and moments, but the overall tone is more just like melancholy, connecting with the land in beautiful ways and sad ways. The writing was absolutely stunning. I would be interested in picking up a full-length novel from this author, and depending on the tone of it, could definitely be included. It was actually blurbed by Wabgisha Grice, one of my favorite authors who writes speculative fiction that feels horror. I really liked everything this book had to say about language and connection and family, and it was casually queer. There was insertions of artwork. There was even these beautiful like descriptions of the art as if you were walking through a gallery and reading about it. I'm so glad I liked it because this is one of my absolute favorite covers of the year. And that brings us to the end of the video. My favorites are right here. These two were the next best. And then I had a good chunk of mid reads, which is standard for me, so not really a surprise. And I have officially decided this is going to be a Literally Dead book club pick for 2024, the month of March, because in February we are doing a short story collection. The official announcement will be out for February, March, and April in the beginning of January, so keep an eye out for that. If you are a mutual of mine and would like to read this with me and co-host the book club, let me know. I think this is a fun journey, and since I haven't picked up a ton of mystery thriller stuff outside of the book club, this was a nice moment to create a whole vlog like based around, you know, kind of the core of what my channel started on. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books and if you like them, how your ratings are similar or differ, and if you're gonna pick any of them up now. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.